You're listening to the Long Game Podcast with Sandra Scaiano. In a world where everyone is doing, it's easy to get lost in a sea of comparison, secret tricks, and promises of overnight success. The long game is my approach to business. The actual day in and day out philosophy that you have to show up, you have to do the work, and there's no quick fixes for long-term success. I'm a web designer, digital strategist, and energetic thinker, and I'm here to share the process and lessons I experience with my clients daily who are going through the same struggles of building a business as you are. We'll hear from successful entrepreneurs sharing their long game strategies, and I'm fun, so we're going to have a little fun along the way too. Thanks for being here. Let's get to today's episode. Welcome to another episode of the Long Game Podcast. I'm your host, Sandra Scaiano. Today, my guest is Jen Lehner. She is the creator of The Front Row CEO, your step-by-step guide to finding, hiring, and training your virtual assistant. Now, Jen is quite special to me because she's my business coach, and I've been working with her for a few years now. I found her years ago. She was my who do I want to be in 5 years persona. She's genuine and smart, funny, and super down to earth. Just totally the type of person that I'm attracted to. So I've been through Jen's CEO course. It's how I found my VA. So I know that experience. And it's funny because I fell into the not ready for a VA group and I just kind of moved along with it. Now I'm experiencing so many benefits of having someone on my team to work with. And in our talk, Jen and I go into the process of how to find a VA, like how to find one and figure out if they know their stuff, because that's really one of the biggest problems and the biggest hurdles is like setting aside the time to find one, because that always just imagining that is such a chore. And then you're trying to hope that they know what they're doing. And how do you figure that out? So Jen has a system for that, and she takes us through it. And we also talk about not only how a VA can help your business, but how building these systems in your business can really help you and your VA to flourish. So, this is something that I talk about with my clients all the time, like when do you bring on help and how do you find the right people? My clients just want to do their zone of genius. So now is the perfect time. This is the perfect time to think about getting help in your business, because the system that Jen has created, she makes it easy and it's affordable. And she shows you how to go through that process. And it's going to free you up. It's going to free yourself up to do the fun, the energizing, and the creative stuff that you want to be doing in your business. So listen in on my chat with Jen Lehner. Welcome, Jen, and I am beyond excited to have you here. You are a mentor and a friend, and you have really helped me propel my business forward. And you've done it with kindness, with connection, and with true substance. So I'm so grateful for you to be here today.
Oh, it's the pleasure is mine, Sandra. I'm so excited. I feel the same way about you, but on top of that, I just really love your podcast. So to be on it is really a treat for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, it's a brainchild that we developed together. I came with the idea, and I've told this story on the podcast before that I was at the mastermind together when we were in Cleveland, and I just had a flood of ideas and really pushed this forward. So it's part you as well.
Yay.
So I am so excited to have you here today. You have so much to offer, but we're gonna slim it down a little bit and talk about some overwhelm that entrepreneurs feel and a lot of the pain points and this step-by-step process that you've created to solve that. But I first want to talk about, and we'll come back to this idea later too, but I love your productivity philosophy. And it's one that I've come to adopt for my own business, and it's all about systems and also working in 90-day spurts. So Let's start there.
Yeah, well, the 90-day chunk thing started for me big time when I actually learned about Todd Herman and 90-day year.
Yep.
And it made such good sense to me. I was like, wow, I just love the idea of looking at a 90-day container as a whole year. And once I did that, when I worked through that the first time, I was completely blown away that I literally got more done in in those 90 days than I had gotten done in an entire year prior, and it really makes so much sense because God knows we know this to be true now with COVID and everything else, but things change. Our world moves quickly. So those days of like the 5-year strategic plan, I mean, they're still important. I mean, we need to forecast
You got to have
out.
vision. You have to have
Yeah,
vision.
exactly. Right. Of course, we got to have vision, but to think that, to even just to sit down, and I like to plan the year out, broadly speaking. Like I do look at my calendar and I go, okay, I'm going to cross out all the days of the whole year I don't want to work. I'm going to put in the dates where I know I have certain things happening. I do that. But when it comes to project management and actually really executing a plan, I boil it down into 90 days and I'll say, okay, like this is the goal of these 90 days. And then we look at the project. Is that one project, 2 projects, whatever, and then break that down into the tasks that need to happen. And then we sprint, and it just feels so much more doable. And I like how tangible it is. And I'm a very instant gratification kind of a person. And so it also gives me that. It's like, oh yeah, well, I am going to see those results in 90 days. So
it's such a mental approach too. Like it gets you mentally, because when you say you're going to do something and it's going to be a year, first of all, you blow off the first half of it. Then you scare the crap out of yourself and you try and get things done. Whereas really just breaking it down into pieces in those 90 days, like I've accomplished so much. And when we've actually had this talk, when we look back on the whole year and you look at it in these quarters, like, wow, how much you accomplished when you're reviewing.
Yes, totally. And another great resource for this is the 12-week year. And I do not have it in front of me, but you could put it in the show notes if you want to. We'll figure out the guy's name. I think his name's Brian. But anyway, same concept, but really makes a great case for it and has some nice templates and stuff in there for people who have never really used that sort of construct or framework before. So really, really love that. I'm never going back to anything else. Like it's the best.
Yeah, with you 100% now. It actually lends itself to the next idea of systems. Like in these small tranches of time, you can develop systems for your business that you're focused on one thing at a time, developing a system and then move on.
Yes.
That's how I've used it myself personally.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to systems, it's like everybody knows we need to have systems, right? Like we're not telling anybody anything they don't already know. I think the problem is, or at least it was for me, was like back when I didn't have systems, I mean, I could look at the mess that was my business. Now it was a mess that I could understand because it was my mess. It's like your messy desk, like where things are, but God forbid if somebody came in and tried to find something, or you tried to tell them, go get the so-and-so off my desk, they'd never be able to find it. So we look around and we know that we need systems because we're spinning our wheels, doing the same things over and over again, or having to relearn stuff. Perfect example is I don't do this for myself anymore at all. I have VAs who do this, but whenever I would need to create a new domain or connect a domain, forward a domain, right? So you do prettypicture.com and then you need to connect it to whatever. I always have to go in there and I know you know how to do this like the back of your hand, but you've got to forward it and there's the masking and the new CNAME and all this stuff. And depending on whether you're doing it on GoDaddy or Namecheap or wherever you do it, I would have to relearn it every single time because like 4 months would go by before I would do it. And that would waste 2 hours, or more. And so that's a perfect example of how if I had a little system for that, then I would just check in with the system. But it wasn't until I realized that it's just the simplest concept, but a system is really just a checklist. And once you think about it like that, it becomes so much less intimidating. So it really is just a checklist. So it's a series of things that you do in a process over and over again every time. So not only does it help you do it faster because you just look at the list and you check the things off, but it also has quality control built into the pudding. So like another process that we use a lot is in our podcast production. So we do outsource the podcast to people who do the editing and the show notes and all that stuff. But that's just like a small part of it, because after, as you well know, after the podcast airs, there's a zillion things you have to do if you really want to get the most out of that podcast. Creating the audiograms, emailing the guest that was on the show with their links and images, and creating the audiograms. Did I already say that? And
Right.
posting all over social media.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, all of that. Writing the email. There's so many things. Researching the hashtags, all that stuff. And so most of the time, like if you do it and you're good at this stuff, you could probably knock most of that out from memory. But the thing is, you're bound to forget something. And there's just added stress. Like, well, what's next? Well, now what do I do? Well, now what do I do? Even if you're a pro, having a checklist that you work off of, you just move so much faster, and you have the confidence that like you're not going to miss anything. So now at this point in my business, anything that we do multiple times, whether it's a quarterly task, an annual task, a daily task, whatever, we have all of those things turned into systems or / checklists. And it's just made all the difference. So I'm always thinking, how can I turn this into a system? How can I turn this into a system? Or how does a current system, if I'm working through a system like, oh, this, a lot of times things become obsolete, no longer necessary. So it's important to keep them fresh as well.
Yeah, so true. And I think also you have those systems to rely on, and you know that you're there, so that you can work and flow better in whatever task you're doing. So you're not building in that extra time to relearn it and stress about it. You're just like, all right, let me go to my organizational system, pull out the checklist, and you're off and running, and you're able to have confidence. I love that piece of it's a confidence builder systems.
Yes, it's a total confidence builder. But I know the pushback that people have, like, because now it's like this, because let's talk like reality. So The reality is, if I have to go tomorrow, even let's say, if I have to go tomorrow and do that web thing again, okay, because I've forgotten it. Last time I did it was 100 years ago. Okay, so let's say I have to do that tomorrow. Even after you and I have had this conversation, I am likely not going to turn that into a system tomorrow, because tomorrow I have 8,000 other things to do. And in order for me to turn that into a system, I'm going to have to pause. I'm going to have to write down, okay, go to GoDaddy. Here's your login. Number 2, create new CNAME. Number 3, right? And I'm going to have to stop, and I'm going to have to create that system. And that is the reality. And that is why, even if we know this, it's like, but I don't have time to stop, because that actually, to create that checklist, it takes a minute, more than a minute. It takes several minutes. And that's when the VA comes into play. I don't know if you're ready to talk about that yet. But
yes, completely.
Okay.
It's perfect to talk about it, because that's exactly, that's the system that you've taught right now, is to say, make your system, create it, and teach it to a VA. For those of you listening who don't know, a VA is a virtual assistant. So it's someone who works in your business, helps you along, but doesn't have to be in the physical presence of you. Yeah, and those two things work so well together. Jen has created a step-by-step system for finding your VA, hiring the VA, and training the VA. And this whole systems process is part of that as well, because when they hear about, you need a VA, they have all these obstacles or, blockings of, it's too soon in my business to have one, or how am I going to get them to do it? I still have to do everything. So your systems piece is a way to create that bridge.
Totally. Yeah. So when I first started teaching how to do this, because I had had such great success with my first virtual assistant, who is still with me today. So when my business first started, I think I stumbled into doing a few things right, and I got really lucky because she's amazing. But we had great success. So I was like, I got to get the word. I want to tell other people like how awesome this is. So I think I did like 3 videos. I did this little free mini course, and I talked about how you can use a screen recording software to record your processes, processes. So anything that you do in your business, you just hit the screen recorder button. At that time, it was Screencastify, I think, that we were using. One of those, but no longer. We use Loom Video for everything. And I'm sure Sandra will link to this in the show notes.
Sure will.
I think you go to Get Loom or something. But anyway, Loom Video, amazing. You just click a button on your desktop and it allows you to record anything that is on your desktop and you talk your way through it. And so what I was telling people to do is like anything that you do in your business, just get in the habit. Every day for 5 days, I want you to just record and talk out loud about what you're doing. Just say, okay, now I am clicking here and I'm opening the email and I'm going to this folder. And after I open the email, I'm going to tag it like this, or I'm going to save it like this. And you're just talking to yourself, right? Because you got to do that stuff anyway. And then we take those links, you stick them on a Trello board or wherever you like to put stuff like that. And at the end of a week, you have an entire like dashboard control center of everything that you do in your business for the most part. And that was pretty much where I ended the training. It was like, okay, do this. And then, I gave tips about how to find the VA. But over the years, what happened is that we've taken it one step further. And that is, it's not enough to just put those videos on there. Now it's part of the whole process. We actually we will create videos. In the beginning, it's I don't want to get way down that rabbit hole and talk about the whole system. It's actually part of our hiring process and part of like a test task that we give them where they will watch a video of one of our processes, something short and easy, and ask them to create a system out of that, a checklist or even a document with screenshots if necessary. Okay. And this is the beauty of this. This is what I'm trying to get to. And that is, if you ask a new virtual assistant to create a system for you on how you create an audiogram for your podcast. Okay. So let's say that's what you want them to create, a system for that step. All you do is you give that recorded video and they create it. They do the checklist and the document. What has just happened is not only do you now have an actual tangible checklist for that system to use forevermore or until, that app changes or whatever, that VA now knows how to do it because they had to so carefully watch your video.
Yeah.
And stop, rewind, play, rewind, and make the notes. They know how to do it. And so I say, take that stuff that you don't want to do anymore, that is completely a waste of your time, that does not create revenue in your business, that is holding you back because it's eating so much out of your day and it's just busy work. Take that stuff and let that be the first stuff that you offload, and you will see immediate results, because you're going to be like, wow, not only is this getting done without me, and it's getting done perfectly and consistently because they're following a checklist, I now have all this free time to do all this stuff I've been dying to do, to write that amazing blog post or create that video, right? So that's
no, totally. And I think everyone needs to listen up for this, because it's how you get to that next step. Like, it's how you overcome the objections of, I can't do it. Because even if you start now, if you're not ready to hire your VA for another month, think about if you started recording your processes now. When that person comes on and you hand them 20 videos, they have something to do the very first day. And it's also a huge piece of them learning about your business, because we all have different businesses. And that was one of my own objections in hiring a VA. I worked with Jen and did her whole process to get my own VA. And I was not against it, but I had some friction with it at the beginning, because I said, I do such particular things. Like, nobody else could do what I do. We know that's not true, but I was overwhelmed with the fact of trying to teach what I do. So this whole Loom video piece just allowed me to do a video and say, okay, do it like this.
yes.
Or, and I just started. So things were out of order. I certainly didn't approach it in the most thought out way, but we just started where we were. And now we have all of these checklists that I do for clients all the time. And I even do things that I share with my clients. I take that checklist and say, this is how to do it for yourself.
Oh, that's
Now,
gold.
like,
Yeah.
it's great. So we know how to do it. I know how to do it. She knows how to do it. And my clients know how to do it
Yeah,
as well.
and now
So,
and when you systemize your business, and there's books like the E-Myth and well, the E-Myth is the big one that talks about turning your business into like a franchise type business, like a fast food business, right? Like it should be so systematic that if you fell off the face of the earth, somebody could come in and pick up and run your business. And obviously our businesses are a little different than McDonald's, but we're getting there, right? Like when you do that, and it's really such a good feeling. And the other thing is, so I love that you said, like, because that is one of the big pushbacks from people. It's just, you think, I mean, I don't even know what I would give to this person, right? Like, I don't know what I would give. Number one, I don't know where to start. And I don't know how to explain to someone what I do in my business, when the truth is, I don't really know what I'm doing from any given day. I come in and I take it as it comes, right? I open the emails, I do the thing. And it's okay to admit that, because I bet you 80% of entrepreneurs show up for work like that most of the time, right? Like it's solopreneurs, I should say. And so that's really normal. And that's like a very natural concern to have. And what this does, like you said, is that it keeps you ahead, keeps you several steps ahead, so that, because like you could be in this situation, and this happens even with people who do this for a week. Okay. Their VAs are so good, so fast. We do run into this, and I'm going to tell you how we rectify that, where someone walks through the program, they have a week's worth of videos, okay, lots of trainings, and they say, here you go, create the systems. And 14 hours later, I'm done. And they're like, what?
yeah.
How is that even possible?
That was me. I'm like, what? What do you mean you're done?
Yeah, and that's a good problem to have, right? You've got this efficient, sharp virtual assistant. Now what to do, because that stops you, that slows you down, because you're like, oh, I gotta, I imagine like baby birds, waiting to be fed. And that can be stressful in its own right. So what you could do is you have a list of, like, I call them wish list trainings. It's stuff that you need to get done in your business, and you might not even know how to do it. So we did this with Google Analytics. I was really slack on doing my Google Analytics, and I really didn't know how to do any of that stuff at the time. I didn't know how to do any of it. And so I found a course, like a really inexpensive online course, I think probably on Udemy. And I just made sure it was recent. You want to make sure whatever course you get is recent. And I gave that to my virtual assistant, and I said, please learn Google Analytics. And after you learn it, please create the system that is going to happen for us to, oh my gosh. And then we ended up with this like amazing system. And the benefit to her is that she's added a whole new skill set to her resume. She's now an expert in Google Analytics. So, and you fill in the blank with.
And that bought you 8 hours. I mean, even of time, right?
Yes.
It gave her something to do, but it also benefited you.
Right. Totally. And yeah, it's like it was money well spent.
So one of the other big obstacles is, how do you find these people? How do you find a VA? Like, people don't even know where to start. And so that is one of the things I really appreciate, is you've created this step-by-step process using the same idea of systems, so that it's easy to understand. It's in a course format, how we can find our VA, hire them. Like, that's one of the big things too, especially when you're looking for VAs overseas, and, not someone that you're going to be in physical contact with. Like, how do you know that they're legit? How do you find, how do you know that they have the skills they say? So you've created a process with the training and the hiring process together, which also goes back, as you were saying, to the systems docs and these systems to build out. So for me, that was a game changer. I knew that I needed the help, and I had been in a big place all year of adding to my team and building to my team. So, but I was bringing on copywriters and SEO experts and all of these other things, or social media experts. Those were things, that was something I didn't want to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think about the admin piece. And that is huge, because the time that we spend in the admin piece, like these other experts were helping and they were good, but this is also furthering my own business. Having a virtual assistant, they're working to help the whole business overall move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is just simple math. And this is the thing. And this is where people look at me like I'm nuts. When I make the case, I stand behind this, and that is, it is so important, if at all possible, and it is possible, that when you start a business, you start from the beginning with an assistant. And because when you start a business, like we know the obvious stuff, like maybe you set up an LLC, you make sure you have a good workspace, whether you rent space somewhere, or you carve out a place in your home, make sure you have good Wi-Fi, you have electricity, you maybe do the legal stuff like starting an LLC, you do all that stuff. But this to me is integral, because right from the beginning, if you're doing all the admin stuff, how are you supposed to be? That's not what you're supposed to be doing. If someone else is doing the admin stuff for you and all that, then you're free to start making the sales calls. And if you spend 3 hours messing around with designing your business cards, okay, or you spend those 3 hours picking up the phone and you call 20 people, or you message 20 people who are your ideal clients on LinkedIn, or you secure 3 speaking engagements, I mean, the list goes on and on. That whatever dollar an hour that you spent paying someone for those 3 hours is exceeded exponentially by the amount of revenue that those 3 hours you spent is going to bring in. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of
Tens
dollars.
of thousands, right? Agreed.
And when you think about your most productive days, when you really hunker down, because it's the whole 80-20 rule. And, as productive as any of us ever are, on those days when we really crush it, what we usually find if we back out is like, wow, it didn't take me 20 hours to make $50,000. I closed that $50,000 with 4 hours of really focused work. We tend to think it's like this long, we do the long launch, we do the long, all that stuff, but that's not really true. So let me go back to the whole, like, from the beginning. So then the pushback is like, well, I'm not making money in the beginning. How am I going to?
Right.
Well, so my system teaches people how to hire overseas so that we can leverage the exchange rate. Okay. And specifically, but my system in the hiring and the training and the onboarding and the day-to-day working together that I teach will work for VAs anywhere. And plenty of people take my program and they choose to work with VAs in Australia or United States or whatever. Okay. But I present this as an option for that solopreneur who really can't afford $25 and beyond for an American or a Canadian virtual assistant. And I got an email yesterday from someone who said, I'll get back to that in a minute. Okay. First, let me present this to you. So in the Philippines, you can hire someone for $4.50 an hour to start with. Okay. We don't recommend that you stay at $4.50, but here's the journey. Someone comes in at $4.50 an hour. In the Philippines, they will speak fluent English. They will have advanced degrees. Education is very important in the Philippines. I lived there for 3 years. My stepmother was Filipina. I mean, I have a lot of connections to the Philippines. And so maybe that's why from the very beginning, I felt very comfortable in doing this. But $4.50 an hour allows you to then guarantee them a minimum of 10 hours, 20 hours, even 40 hours a week. For them, being able to have a steady client, now they don't have to go chasing down new clients. That's worth a lot right there. Knowing that you're going to guarantee them $10 an hour. 10 hours a week, 20, 40 hours a week, whatever it may be. Okay. So there's that. The other thing is, and we just did a new report of this. So I spoke to both of my Filipino VAs and I said, listen, you guys, I want to know realistically, because I talk about it all the time, how $4.50 an hour is a completely reasonable wage. Sounds horrific to us. And that's like horrible that you would only pay somebody $4.50 an hour based on price of things here in the States. So I said, listen, what I need you to do is like, we figured out what $4.50 an hour, I think it was like 38,000 pesos a month is what it came down to. Okay. I was like, can you tell me realistically what that would pay for in the Philippines? Okay. It's unbelievable. And
I love this breakdown because I've read it.
And I don't have it in front of me, but the list is
Right.
like, it's unbelievable. And after electricity, rent, mortgage, 2 kids in private school, internet,
Food.
utilities, food, what else? Oh,
There's still money for savings.
healthcare, and retirement. There was still almost 4,000 pesos left over to put into savings. That's it. $4.50. So these are real numbers. And I told them, I was like, I don't want this to be hypey. I really want a real picture. So, so we could talk about this with all the integrity, that people expect from us. And I want to be real about this. Okay. Now, so that's great. Now what's happening is, so you guarantee, so let's say you guarantee 10 hours a week at $4.50 an hour. I mean,
right. You can make that happen. And it's going to help you, like you said, free you up to make sales calls or all those things that are money-making ventures in your business so that you can expand that relationship and expand there.
Yeah, totally. And so what I recommend is that, but there are things that have to happen from the beginning, because a lot of people are like, look, I've tried that before. I've gone down that road. There's a bunch of websites where you can hire from the Philippines. And I've done that and I got ghosted, or I did that and they really weren't up to snuff. And that is true. You can't just go to these websites and just hire and expect all the magic to happen. That is not, it's not that easy. Well, it is easy. You just have to be really deliberate and be really careful about several things. And once you hire the person, number one, I recommend a trial week. So as soon as you hire someone, you're actually saying, okay, great. Everything looks great. I'd like you to sign this agreement. We're going to work together for 1 week. And if all goes well, then I will offer you
and it's a paid week.
Position.
So there's
right. And you're totally paying them for that trial week, but that protects you as well. And then here is really, I just think the most important part is that we can help. We want this VA to be with us for years, not weeks. Right. And so it starts from the very beginning. And so you might not be able to increase their salary right away or their hourly rate, like let's say for 6 months. But there are other creative ways that you can reward them and help them feel like they are a part of your business. And feeling like they are a part of your business is the key to success for this relationship that you're having with them. Because who doesn't want to feel like they're a part of something? Like, we're hardwired as human beings to want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves and to be a part of a community and to grow and to learn. That's just human. That's global, right? Like that's just
completely.
It's human beings.
And I think in my own business, even I shared my vision of my business with my VA. She started at 20 hours. I shared my vision with her. I moved her to 40 hours and I continue to share the vision of we're going to get more VAs and you're going to help train them. And, I want her to know what I'm building. So, and she's a part of the plan,
I'm so
it doesn't
glad.
happen in 6 months, but she gets it. Like, the vision.
Yes, share the vision. And we talk about that in the course. And when they first join, there's a video that talks about your vision and the culture of your business and how what's important to you, all your values, all that kind of stuff. So you could get creative and say, hey, I'm going to offer you $4.50 an hour to start. We'll evaluate again in 90 days. But in the meantime, I've got this big launch coming up. And I'm looking to get 100 people in the course. If we hit that number, I'm going to give you 10% of the gross. or the net or whatever, 5%,
Right.
something, because it's just fun. It just makes it more fun. You're sort of gamifying it a little bit, right? Or we're trying to grow our email list. If we hit this number, everybody's going to get a $50 bonus. I mean, you can be, but as you grow, and here's the thing, is that as your business grows, they're going to grow with you because their salary is going to go up. And because, you can keep raising how much you're paying them over the years, and it'll be a long time before you ever really hit $10 an hour, unless you just get there sooner. But once you get to $10 an hour, I mean, that's a very good wage. That's a very good wage where, and so you're not going to get ghosted, right? And that is typically what happens is you get ghosted because there is a fear of confrontation, right? And like, there's just this idea that I hate to talk about people like as a group, but the truth is, like, in our course, we have another course that is for the VA that you hire. So the course comes with another course called the Front Row VA. And in that course and in the big course, my virtual assistants interviewed in person other virtual assistants in the Philippines and asked them some pretty deep questions that would maybe be awkward for us to ask, right? But one of the questions was, a lot of people complain about the fact that they hire a VA from the Philippines and then they get ghosted. Why is that? And what those VAs told us on these videos is that there is in the culture in the Philippines, there is sort of this non-confrontational, unspoken rule. Okay. So instead of coming to you and saying, listen, you're inconsistent with the work you give me, you don't communicate well, or you're mean, or, whatever the complaint is that they have, instead of having that conversation with you, then they just leave, right? They find someone else because they don't feel invested in your business. If they feel invested in your business and you start from there, you're not going to be best friends lovey-dovey. It takes time to create these long-lasting relationships, but you will be on the right track for sure.
Totally. And you bring up such a good point because it is cultural. We have these different pieces of our personality based on culture. So I thought it was so great to understand that. And even these little pieces about how to sweeten the deal, so to speak, I mean, I bought my VA a generator, you know what I mean? Like at one point I was like, wow, there's a tsunami and that's what she needs. And like, we're in this together. Like, I'm going to do that for you. And those are the things along the way that form a relationship, even though you're not in a physical place for each other. Like, she communicated her need to me and I believed her, and it's months later, we're still going,
I love it. That's such a good example. Sending flowers, sending a cake, these are all just little ways, like you said, to sweeten the deal, and start to build that relationship without necessarily having to jump to, just to keep adding dollars to the hourly rate. Right. You do want to do that eventually as you grow together. So the email that I got recently was this woman who said, how dare you promote hiring in the Philippines when there's so many Canadian and American VAs who need jobs right now? So
I have my opinion on that too.
Well, so I said, well, first of all, I disagree with your premise that every VA I know right now is busier than they've ever been. I don't care if they're in Norway and I talk to a lot of VAs on a daily basis because so many businesses have moved to virtual because of COVID. And so they're all pretty darn busy. So I disagree with the premise, right? But secondly, when you grow your business like this, because it's just not an option for most solopreneurs to pay $25 an hour for any meaningful amount of time, right? Like, yeah, maybe I could afford a VA in the very beginning for, 2 hours a week at $25 more hour or more even, right? But it's going to add up to a point where I'm going to be in the red right off the bat, right? So now the solopreneur can grow, make some money. And now guess what? That solopreneur can hire from anywhere in the world. So I have my graphic designers, I've got podcast producers, I have all sorts of regular contractors in the United States who I give a nice chunk of change to every single year. But if my business wasn't growing, I would not be able to put that money back into my local economy. So I just think, I think everybody wins. I also think I'm also sort of the mindset that like, we're just all human. So
totally. And my VA is a mom and working like I'm supporting that same ideal that I do here or there. Like she is just as worth the money I pay her as I would anybody else here. And she's the same, I see that the same way. It's just an exchange rate that we're utilizing or leveraging. And I want to add another point to that because in the beginning of my business, I did hire another VA who was somewhere in the $20 range. And it was a waste of money because I didn't have the system set up. I wasn't able to afford all of that. So when I gave things to do, we got it done, but it didn't fit into the larger plan of a long-term piece. So yes, did I get some things done? Yes, I got some tasks done, but they didn't really help the overall of my business because there wasn't longevity to it.
mm-hmm.
So it was very short term and, it racked up. I mean, at that point I was like, okay, I have 2 kids under 2 and I need some help getting all this stuff done. And it became too much to pay that amount. And then whatever I invested in it, like I really didn't get my return because there wasn't that long-term piece. So in my eyes, I feel like I wasted that money by going that route at first because it just didn't fit in with everything. Plus also with your whole system that you teach, it really primes you to make the best setup for your relationship from how to train them, how to bring them on. Like, I just can't say enough about having that understanding, and using those systems that are already in place. Like, I don't have to invent another system. You tell me the system and it's already proven and it works.
Yeah.
So that is so valuable.
I knew it had to be like that because I knew because of that free mini course I had for years, I knew the struggles that people were still running into. So I was like, how can I break this down into super short, bite-sized lessons that are basically templated, So you literally just plug in and follow the templates and at the end you have a VA, right? But people do run into situations for whatever reason where their VA doesn't work out. And then, of course, we talk about the best way to pivot from there. But the greatest thing is that once you know how to do this and do it well, it's like you said a minute ago, you want your VA to then train other VAs. It's exactly what happens with people after this course. And that's exactly how it works for me. So when we hire a new VA, my VAs run the whole process. At the very end, after everybody's been vetted, screened, test tasked, everything, then I will jump on a Zoom call or a Skype call with 3 candidates, and they will be so qualified that a lot of times I will hire all 3 for a trial week. Now, they don't know that they're basically competing with other 3 people, a paid trial week, because this is the other thing, no matter how great, and we all know this from real life, I mean, not outside of virtual, I mean, in face-to-face life, is that somebody can nail the video, I mean, the interview. And even though we give them test tasks, we're not watching over their shoulder to see exactly how long it takes and so forth. So you don't really know if you've nailed it when you hire them. So if you start 2 or 3 people in your trial week, it is amazing what you see. For example, I was looking for graphic designers and I found 3 people who were all really qualified. I narrowed it down to 2 and put them both into a trial week. In that trial week, they were each working on different Trello boards, but they had very similar tasks. So same amount of work. So let's say I gave them like a PDF workbook to create from a raw Google Doc. Okay. I put it on their Trello board and The one person I interviewed was super, super introverted, painfully introverted. It was a very awkward, difficult Skype interview. I could barely get her to say anything, but her work was really good. The other person, super charming, nailed the interview, was just, loved her. So I was like, but the other person, her work was so good. Put them both in there. Guess what? Miss Congeniality took forever. Number one. Number two, she kept messaging me with all these questions that were totally aggravating because they were things she should have been able to figure out based on the information I had given her. There was no need for her to keep bothering me. Okay. But Miss Introvert, she was unbelievable. In fact, what took Miss Congeniality like 4 days to complete, finally, Miss Introvert had completed in 1 day and was like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And it was flawless, perfect, whatever. So she was with me for a year and a half, and then she went on to do things in another industry. So that's why, like, it's just, but if you have a system for this, you can allow for that. And it doesn't have to be this like huge, overwhelming thing that you're dreading, like hiring, training, onboarding, managing. No, it can be a pleasure. You just have to do it the right way.
Totally. And I love like working with my VA. I love to give ownership. This is yours. You're going to manage it from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to pop in, but I'm not going to tell you, like, aside from saying, here's how we do it, or here's some steps, or here's some resources, like, I don't worry about it now. Like, she's got it. And I like to do that so that she's got a whole project that she owns, and then she's really contributing. It's not just like getting tasks. Sure, there are tasks that I have to pass along because those are things that we always have. But I really like to say, like, my podcast is a perfect for instance. Like, when I started it, and I kept priming, we were doing some training before the podcast even launched. And now my VA, she is like, if she didn't do it, I mean, it's so much that she's in charge of and she owns. And I also think she appreciates that ownership feeling in it. But it is such a help because I don't think about it. I record it. And then I share some resources of my notes and links that and then everything gets handled. Like, we've already created the system together of what we want. And now she executes it. And she does that in her own time as well, because she knows when it needs to be done. So she's able to manage herself without me micromanaging. And that is a glorious relationship because nobody likes to be a micromanager or be micromanaged. So to me, that's another benefit of it, is being able to say, like, here it is.
I love it. That's such a gold star for you, Sandra. That is,
thank you. It's like the one thing I've been able to do.
That is really fantastic. And that is, I mean, people want autonomy. Your VA became a VA because just like you as a solopreneur, he or she wants freedom of choice, of client, of tasks. They want, there's same thing as what you want, right. So, and that's something that we can easily make happen for them. And we benefit from. You show up, you press record. And that's a great figurative way to think about everything you do with a VA, is that you should be able to walk in and press record and do your magic, right? Make your magic and know that someone else has your back. And
right.
And it's just the most awesome feeling.
And I love now, like, she has been learning my business. We started off slow because I was a little resistant in terms of I didn't feel I was ready yet, just because I had so much on my plate. So I will totally fall into that column. So I took some time to introduce her to different parts of my business. And I love now, like, she says things to me on our calls when we do them, like, oh, have you thought about this? Or do you want to do that? And I'm like, oh, you're thinking from me now too. Like, I love that. Like, yes. That's what you want. To me, that shows that she's part of the team too. Like,
she cares.
She cares. She's talking with her friend about her job and they have a suggestion, So Grace, I love you. Thank you. But I really, I think that's a piece that you get to as well. Like, these people aren't just some satellite thing. And of course it doesn't happen overnight, but you do grow a relationship. And I'm a big virtual person, digital person, just by the nature of my business. And, I laugh that I have a lot of female entrepreneur friends who I'm better friends with, who I have barely met or just met, in person. But we have this virtual relationship. So I know it's possible, whether it's a friendship or a working relationship,
Totally.
you can do that. So I'm a believer in it.
Awesome.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Jen, for coming on. And we've got, Jen's got a bunch of information for you to dive into. She's actually launching, it just started this week, the Solopreneur to CEO series. And I'll have a link to it on my on the show notes. But you can also text SMART CEO to 44222. That's 2 4s and 3 2s. Text SMART CEO, and you will get links to the mini video series that she has going on. And there's a lot of education in there. Jen's full of information and just in general wants to raise people up. So definitely check her out. And then you'll be able to get information following about the Front Row CEO, which is the whole process of finding, hiring, and training your VA. So
wow,
definitely check that out.
I couldn't have said any of that any better. Thank you so much, Sandra.
So we are, now Jen and I are about to step into our next 90 days together as well. So I work with Jen ongoing. So I'm excited about that, to wrap it back around to the beginning of our conversation. So there's a lot of things in here to pay attention to, all of the systems, the 90-day idea, and really starting before you think you're ready for a VA, because there is a way to get that going that you can afford, and you can get really competent people who can grow with you. So definitely start moving in that direction. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye, Jen.
Bye. Thanks, Sandra.
Thanks for joining me today. You can access more info in the show notes at thelonggamepodcast.net. If today's show connected with you in some way, please share it with your friends or hop on iTunes and leave me a review. Until next time, keep playing the long game.